Hey gang, nice to see you today. My name is Larissa and I'm a librarian in the reference department. If you've never met me before, I am usually upstairs. Today we're going to do Crafternoon again. As you can see, I am not sitting at my kitchen table, but that's because it's got a puzzle on it right now. So we're going to switch things up and I'm going to show you right in my living room. Before we get started, I do want to make a couple more announcements. They're basically the same as last week, but we just want to reiterate over and over again that even though the building is closed, the library staff is still here for you. We are still here to answer any questions or concerns, help troubleshoot your device issues, or help you get set up with your e-card, or work on your access to Libby or Hoopla, any of that. Be sure to let us know. We're available via email, Facebook, Instagram. We're checking that every day and trying to keep up with that. So thank you for your patience, but also don't feel like you can't talk to us. We're still here, we're still working, we're trying to come up with ways to reach you guys even better than before. So we've been working from home for about 3 weeks now. We're excited to keep bringing you virtual programming. Let us know if you have any ideas or things that you want to do. There's a lot of great children's stuff coming up. Miss J is doing story time on Tuesdays and Fridays at 10:30, which is great. She's also added a virtual book club for a book that's available for free on Hoopla for everybody. She's also doing a ukulele strum along, and that's coming up in a couple of weeks. And she's transitioned the annual Peeps Diorama contest into a virtual contest. So send your Peeps Diorama entries to duchildrens@ocln.org, and if that's wrong, I'll correct myself. And just stay active. So today we're doing Friendship Bracelets Part 2 for our Crafternoons, and like I mentioned before, Crafternoons is a program that they do in the children's room every Thursday afternoon. And as a very crafty person, I never get to participate because I'm always working on the desk upstairs in reference on Thursday afternoons. So one of the things that I've been doing is making a lot of friendship bracelets. It's one of my favorite childhood crafts, and it's just one of those things that I can pick up and work on, and it is very calming and monotonous and kind of is almost meditative when I'm working on something like that. And the other thing that I really like about it, which I talked about last week, is that it's something that you can do for your friends and family. It's great for kids that are missing their friends or their cousins or anybody else, and they want to do something for them, and it's just nice to make something like that you're thinking about. So I can even show you what I was working on all week. I finished a couple that I had been making. So one for my sister, and these ones are for my niece and nephew, Maddie and Seamus. So I'm excited to send those out to them all sanitized properly, and that will be a nice little treat. But this is something that you can throw together with yarn or embroidery floss or anything that you have kind of floating around. And like I said, it's just nice to work on something that kind of keeps your mind calm and that you can kind of give to somebody else, which is always kind of nice. So last week I got started with the basics, and today I'm going to talk about a little bit of that for a couple of minutes before we get into more detailed patterns. One of the things that I want to say is that I forgot to share the starting knot. So you can see, like on this one, I've got, oh, it's a little out of focus. This knot right here is really just an overhand knot. I talked a little bit about why I like using the loops, because you can hook them onto things a lot easier and get that nice tension when you're working on it. But in order to make it, you are just going to take your string and you're just going to make a regular overhand knot like this. And so this is a poor example because I don't have a loop to show you, but keep a loop on one side and then keep all your ends on the other, and you're just going to pull that nice and tight until you get that knot to hold it where you want it to be. There's fancier ways that you can do it. I don't think that's super necessary right now, and for the most part the overhand knot just does the trick and keeps it nice and even and together. A lot of times when I do the overhand knot, I'll go through afterwards and I will just pull each thread individually extra tight just to get a really nice even knot. But that's basically how I start every single one that I do. So the other thing you want to remember is that you're always doing that same little 4 knot that I talked about last week over and over again. This week we're going to talk about some more detailed patterns. I'm not going to go crazy, but I'll kind of give you some tools that you can use going forward. The biggest thing, I talked about this a little bit last week as well, but the biggest thing when it comes to pattern is thinking about your colors. Because you can do a lot with patterns and color by just switching up your color or switching up the order of your color. I do a lot of chevron patterns because they're simple and clean and neat. So you can see on this one that I've got 4 colors. I think that's a little bit better in focus. And the way to accomplish this is you just have your kind of like on each side, you start on the outside with pink and then yellow and then white, and then working your way from the outside in, which is a little bit different that we talked about last week from going across, but it's the same basic process, and I'll show you that on my project in a minute. But just having the colors meet together in the middle, so meeting pink to pink and meeting yellow to yellow and meeting white to white is going to create that stripe. So you could take, for example, a bunch of colors and do a rainbow. That's really simple. That's kind of one of the easier ones that you can do. You could also keep all of your yellow strings on one side and all of your pink strings on the other side, and that's going to make kind of like a little checkerboard pattern. You can switch up the way your chevron moves, so you can move it inside, outside, which would create a diamond pattern, and that's going to go more into how you change your knots up to do different patterns, and like I said, I'm going to get to that in a second. But picking your colors is really, I don't want to say the most important thing you could do, but it's really important. And making sure that you like the colors, because you're going to have to look at them for a while, that is also really helpful too. For finding color palettes, a lot of times I just use Pinterest. If you go on Pinterest and just search for color palettes, they will come up with so many images, and some of them are for graphic designers, some of them are paint, some of them are craft colors, but usually it just gives you, it kind of gets your brain flowing a little bit about what colors go together. You don't need to know color theory to match colors. Like I said last week, I picked pink for Maddie because she likes pink, and Seamus is obsessed with orange right now, so I did orange for him, and I this is a different one from last week, but I threw in some blue as well. That's as simple as it needs to be. One of my best friends, Mary, she loves red, so I've got a red one ready to go for her. And I think I mentioned Catherine last week. She lived in Ireland, so she's got green colors coming to her. Like, it's really simple. It doesn't have to be crazy. If you want to keep things really monochromatic, which is actually kind of trendy right now, that would be good. Just want to keep track of what you're doing. This is one that I made for my sister, and it's a lot of really pale, light, like blush colors, which I wouldn't show for a demo because it's kind of hard to distinguish between them, but that can be really fun too. Or if you want something really crazy and fun and packs an impact, you know, hit all your colors. Like with this one, actually, I should say that I thought about this one for a long time because not all rainbows are created equal. And so I ended up picking a couple of lighter colors and a couple of brighter colors. So like you can see the red and the blue is really bright. Those are really vibrant, saturated colors. But for the green and the yellow and then even this purple, I chose lighter colors, and it just balances it out a little bit. It's not quite so hit you in the face. And again, that depends on who you're making it for. If you're making it for yourself and what you like to wear, or if you're making it for a friend or a child or a teenager, any of those things could kind of play into it. So that being said, I'm gonna switch around right now and I'm gonna show you some different ways to do knots. All right, give me a second, I'll be right back. All right, so repeating what I was talking about before, showing you the little overhand knot. So I've got my loop here. This is where I'm going to have the loop at the top, and then I'm going to work the bracelet down from the bottom. What I want to do is basically just create an overhand knot with a little bit of loop on one end. And you can kind of fuss this how you need it. More loop is sometimes better than other times, depending on how fancy you want to get tying your bracelet on. But that's all you need right there. Pull it nice and tight. This will give us plenty of room to work with when we go to tie it on our wrist. And then, like I said, you can, if you want to get really, really tight about it, you can take each one at a time and pull it tight, just to make that overhand knot as clean as it can be. So I'm going to make my way through all of these strings, I think this is an old set that I came up with. But this is a 4-color set, which is going to give us a bracelet about 7 stitches wide, which is a decent width, I think, for most people. It's not going to take you too long to work on. You're not going to get too bored with it. It's not going to be too wide on your wrist. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and get us clipped on here. And what I'll do to start is I'm going to clip it right above our overhand knot, which is not going to give me a lot of good tension. Maybe I'll try just right on the knot. And then once you have a little bit, you can clip it right below the knot, and that knot will help to catch. Because one of the things that I can't stress enough about friendship bracelets is having the right tension. See, it didn't even work. When you go. So maybe since this is just a practice one, I'm just going to clip it right underneath that knot so we can see what we're doing. And you don't have to worry about losing it when you pull it tight like that. So I was talking before about arranging your colors. And that is going to make a big difference in your pattern. So if you want to just stick with a regular stripe pattern and you want to do that chevron that I had talked about, you're going to want one of each color on each side. And doing the loop like that we had talked about before makes it really simple to do this, because you know you're going to have one of each color on each side because it's doubled because you folded it in half. So what you're going to want to do is figure out what order you want your colors to be in. I think with this one, I'm going to split up the green and the orange. I don't really love that, but I might do it like this. So I've got orange on the outside, then red, then green, then white. So that is going to be the order that I work them in. So last week when we were doing just stripes, I talked about working your way from left to right. We're going to start that way for our chevron here. And I'm just going to do these all the way across. So we're going to make our 4 like we talked about. And then I'm going to do 2, which getting tight up there is going to be hard, 2 knots on each string. So I'm going to make my way 1, 2, and then our 3rd string across. So now we've made our way through all of the strings on our left side. And that's where we're going to stop. And so that is when we decide to switch things up. So if you want to do a chevron pattern kind of like this, where it works down from each side, you have to do half of it from the left, like we talked about last week, and then the other half of it, we're going to work backwards, and we're going to work from our right. So the other thing we want to do is make sure that the color is in the same order. So we did orange, red, then green, then white. And so sometimes this will get a little bit tangled up because the strings aren't necessarily going to want to go where you want them to go. But once you get a couple of rows in with knots, it's going to work out fine. And you're not even really going to notice that it was difficult at the top. So when it comes to starting from the outside, on the other side, you just want to think about your 4, but again, you're just going to think about it opposite. So when you're working from left to right, you make your nice little 4. When you're working from right to left, you're just going to go the opposite way, okay? So it's more of just, like a weird triangle shape for now. And you do want to make sure that this tail goes over so that when you reach under, you can pull that tail right through. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to do 2, and you're just going to want to make sure that you remember what direction you're going in. So it's almost like you're always having the tail, this part, pointing in the direction that you're working across. So we're going to do 2 on that string, then we're going to move to the green one, and we're going to do 2 again with our tail pointing where we're going. On that string, 1 and 2. Oop. And then on the white string, we're going to do it again. That backwards weird little 4. We're going to go 1, 2. And then the most important part is that we need to bring these 2 sets of knots together in the middle, which means you're going to tie these 2 orange strings together. You can do it however you want. You can always do it from the right. You can always do it from the left. You can take turns. It's not going to make a huge difference in the basic shape of your bracelet, but it just depends on how neurotic you want to be. So I'm going to just keep going from right to left like I was. And I'm going to make this center knot right here. And I'm going to do, again, 2 knots every single time. And then our new string, because we're working from left to right, is now going to be on the left. And that original orange string we worked on is over here on the right. So if we were going to then make our second row, which you can see a little bit of that, I don't know how close we can get, but you can see that little arrow shape right there. So if we're going to work on the next row, we're going to just do the same thing. And you're going to work from the outside in, and you're going to start on the left or the right, depending on what you like. You might decide you like making the right knots better. But we're going to go ahead and do 1, 2. And remember, you're keeping the tail going towards the direction you're working in. So we're making our way left. There's 2 knots there, and then we're going to do 2 knots on this orange one. And then that one goes in the middle. And then we're going to go back to the outside. And this kind of breaks it up a little bit, especially if you're working with a lot of colors and strings. You're not working your way across quite so far. It's kind of like broken down into 2 little pieces. So instead of going all the way across 7, you're doing 3 and 3, and then you tie in the middle. And it just breaks it up a little bit. So again, we want to remember our backwards 4. Oop, that's a little messy. Our string is, our tail is going across the direction we're going in, and just make sure you're not mistaking your loops. I'm going to go ahead and pull this guy 2. And then what comes next? Our white comes next. We've got 1, 2. The orange is the last one. 1, 2. And you'll find more comfortable ways to do it depending on if you're a righty or a lefty, or if you're ambidextrous. There's lots of different ways to get these knots going, and you'll figure out what works for you. So the last one again is to do that center knot in the middle. So here's our backwards 4. I'm going to pull it right through there and go 1, 2. And then remember, the one we were working with, which is working our way across, that is now going to be on the left. And the original one is going to be on the right. So that's another thing you're going to want to keep track of, is where your strings are, so that they're not getting kind of mixed up, because that can happen. And the other part now that we're going to talk about is if you want to change direction, okay? So let's say we wanted to, instead of doing this chevron shape, we wanted to make like X's and O's, or I think it's like more of a diamond shape, you could even say. So we're gonna think about where our knots are going across, because we could keep doing these chevron stripes all day long. But if we want instead to use this red to make an X, we know we're gonna be tying with the red across like this, okay? But you have to think about the grid, because technically you've got a little grid of knots all the way across. So we still have to fill in with the next colors. So let's try this. If we want to make a red X, we're going to continue to work our way across, but we're going to skip, we're not going to knot this middle one, because we know that we're going to be knotting with this soon enough. So let's make a little tiny green stripe, and again, 2 knots. 1, 2. All right, and now our green is here, because remember, we're not taking it all the way across, because we know we're going to tie with our red string across this way. And we still need to do one more, so let's go ahead and take this white. We're going to do, instead of doing 1, 2, we're just going to do 2 knots right on this orange string. 1, 2. And you're going to notice that our colors are in a slightly different order now than they were. Okay? And we're going to take this red across to continue our X all the way down. But remember, now that we are continuing to move from right to left, we're not going to be making that 4, we're going to make it backwards. Because just the way this string started over here and is moving to the left, we're going to take it across, and we're going to make that backwards 4 now, because we're still moving this way. 1, 2, 1, 2, and last but not least, 1, 2. So you can see that now this red stripe that we started all the way over here has continued all the way down. And if we repeat this process with the 2 little green knots and the 1 little white knot on the right hand side, we'll get that nice symmetrical pattern. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and continue that over here, and we're still moving from right to left. So we wanna make sure we're doing our backwards 4s. 1, 2, and we only did 2 knots, so we're just gonna do the 2 knots on the white and the 2 knots on the orange. So 1, 2, and now our orange stops right there, so it's between our green stops between the orange and the red. And then we're gonna do 1 little bit on this orange string, and that is gonna give us the right little bit of space for our red X. So we're going to do our 2 spots, and now remember we're moving right to left, so that white string is going to be right there in between. So if we want to continue our red X down, we just have to do this little leg on the lower right hand side. But this time we're taking this one and we're moving from left to right. So we're going to do our knots on these 3, and we're going to remember our 4. So I'm going to move this out of the way. We're going to make our 4, and I'm going to do 2 knots on each of these strings. 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. And now, not only do we have this nice X shape, but now we can kind of continue our chevron just in the opposite direction if we wanted to. The most important things that we just talked about are knowing which direction you're going in. So if you're working from the outside in, you're gonna be going from left to right, which means you have your 4s on this side, on the left. And if you're going from right to left, you're gonna make that backwards 4. And that's basically how you can knot in either direction. And I hope that makes sense, but if not, I'll try to go through it again a little bit easier when we do this next part. So we know that to fill in this little triangle piece that's left underneath, we're going to have to start all the way up here, because yes, we're moving from left to right or from outside to the inside, but we're also moving from the top down. If we were to start on the outside again now and move our way in, you'd see a bunch of strings open in the middle, kind of like this up here. And you can do that if you want. That's a stylistic choice. But if you want it to be filled in all the way, like some of these, you're going to want to make sure that you're doing your knots all the way down. So to fill in that triangle left by the X, we're going to start in the middle now. And I hope I'm not getting too complicated on you guys, but we're basically just remembering outside to inside and top to bottom. So we have these 2 greens in the middle, and we need to knot them because we need to fill in a knot right below this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue moving from left to right just like we did with this little leg. So I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to make my 4, because like I said, left to right, and we're going to work our way like this. It's going to feel kind of weird because you're used to working on the outside and now we're working on the inside, but you're going to go ahead and make your nice 2 knots, and this is the one we're working with, so this is moving to the right, and then this guy ends up over here with this bunch. So we're going to keep going, and we are going to fill in the rest of these. So we're still moving from left to right, so we're making our 4. We're going to do this all the way across. And we've filled that in. So now we just have to go and do the other part of it. So we're going to pick up again this left behind green from before in the middle. And this time, even though we're on the left side of our bracelet, we're still moving from right to left. So we're going to make our backwards 4 like this, and we're going to pull him through right like this. 1, 2, and we're going to just do it all the way across. 1, 2, and 1, 2. And so now, because we finished, now this guy's on the outside, which is the same thing that happened over here, and we still have this. So you could keep doing this all the way down, and instead of having your chevron shape move down, it's going to look like this. You could continue to do this and throw in some more of those X's. We could turn this green shape into a diamond shape in between another X. There's all sorts of things you can do. And it's really just paying attention to which direction you're moving in and what knot you're doing. So let's say we wanted to continue filling in this underneath these little legs, but we don't want to do the upside down chevron anymore. We're going to go back to the regular one. So we're going to have to throw another X in at some point. But we can't do that X until we know that it's making a diamond shape like this. So we've got to fill it in. And what we're going to do is we're going to start in the middle with this white, and I'm going to keep moving from right to left. So make our backwards 4. 1, 2, and so now this guy that we're moving across, he is now going to be on the left. And I'm going to move these guys out of the way so they're not confusing you. So what we want to do is, if we want to turn this green line into a diamond, we know we're going to keep moving to the left with this white one, but we're not going to go all the way because we know we need this green one to come back across. So we're just going to do stitches, little knots on these two, the white, the orange, and the red. That was 2. I'm losing count as I'm talking. 1, 2. So now we're stopping with this white thread, so he is going to stay right here. And we're not using the green yet because we know when we've filled in enough, we're going to come down. So let's go ahead and repeat that on the other side. So let's get this green guy out of the way. We know we're going to skip over him. We're going to take this white one that we're working with, and since we're going from left to right, just like we read, we know we're going to make the 4. So let's go 1, 2, and 1, 2. And now we've got our white and our green just like that. So we need to fill in just a little bit more, and we're going to have less and less to do because as we move our way down, we are only going to have to work with what's in the middle because we are not using the green with that white stitch, and we're not going to use the white with this orange stitch that we're doing next. So I'm just going to keep moving left to right, and I'm going to go across the orange, 1 and 2, and the red, 1 and 2. And so now this orange is right here, and we just need to continue this on the left side. So we're going to do our backwards 4 with the orange string on this red right here. We're going to go 1 and 2, and since this orange is moving across, he's now on the left. So what's left is this red in the middle, and as you can see, we're getting a little bit of that shape. We're getting a little bit of that diamond shape that's going to be on the inside of our green diamond. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this red and I'm just going to do 2 knots together. 1, 2. And you can do it from either direction. It's not going to make a huge difference. Just want to make sure that whichever one you're working with ends up on the other side. So now we can work from the outside in all over again, and then we'll fill in just like we had a red X. We're going to have this little green diamond shape. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start on the right hand side actually, just so we can practice our backwards stitches, our backwards knots. I don't know why I keep saying stitches all of a sudden. So let's go ahead and make our backwards 4, and we're going to start with the green on the outside. We're going to do two knots on every one, and 1, 2, and 1, 2. You're going to see that diamond shape start to come together. So the same way we just needed to do that last little leg for the X, we just needed to close up our diamond, and we're going to work our way across from the outside. And this time it's left to right, so we know we're making our 4s. And we know we're going to finish by tying our greens together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tuck this guy right here so he's ready to go when I get across. So here's the one we're working with on the outside, and we're going to make our 4, and we're going to make our way across, close up this diamond shape. I'm throwing a lot at you right now as far as doing different knots and changing direction and kind of thinking about what it's going to look like ahead of time. So I know that's going to get confusing. Oh, this guy's moving on me. 1, 2. So just staying aware and looking at what you're doing and thinking about it ahead of time is going to take you where you need to go. So we're going to finish up our diamond shape right here with 2 little knots. And now we've got that filled in, and we're back where we started. We're back where we started. It's the same shape you're going to see for knots on all these other ones that I've been working on. So you've got, you know, ends on either side, and you're going to work your way from the outside in. And you can continue that over and over again to make your stripes, or you can start all over and do that X again, and you can repeat this pattern over and over again, which I think I'm going to end up doing with this since I started it this way. So that's the basics of moving from the outside inside and changing direction with your knots. So the big thing you want to remember is if you're moving from left to right, you're doing our nice 4 shape. And if you're moving from right to left, you're just going to make it backwards. So you're just going to think about a mirror and you're going to make it backwards. And that's kind of the biggest thing you want to worry about. And think about moving from top down as well as from outside inside, or from left to right or right to left. So that's going to be just as important, so you know that you're filling in. I kind of like this. It looks like a little sunset right in that little diamond shape. So that is what I'm going to continue with. And you can just keep repeating that. You can pick one shape that you like. You can manipulate it to get whatever kind of chevron shape you want. Or you can just keep it really simple and just keep moving from the outside inside, and you'll get this nice chevron pattern. So I think I've hit you with enough this week, and we will end it right here. If you guys have any questions, you can just leave them on this video, or you can get in touch with us at the library. And don't forget to check out our digital resources. You can use the apps Libby and Hoopla to look for different craft books. And if there's something you want to see in our digital collections, just let us know and we'll see what we can do. Thanks, guys.